Feisty, fearless, and fair. She's an Emmy-winning journalist from the White House to war zones, telling all sides of the story. This is the Rita Cosby Show.
I know your name is Rita, 'cause your perfume is smelling sweet. Since when I saw you down on the floor. Guitar, whoa.
Well, the debate is right around the corner, and for Joe Biden, I do believe it is do or die in the race. Again, the big news that just came out a little bit ago, this is Rasmussen Reports, and they've had some pretty good polls through the years. I know Scott Rasmussen. He's been a pollster for a long, long time, and the new poll that he has out has Trump up 10 points if it is Biden and a 5-person race. So, you know, we're talking RFK and some of the others. And if it's a head-to-head matchup, it is Trump at 49% and Joe Biden at 50%. This is huge. And this just shows that Joe Biden has to do a good job at the debate. First of all, he's got to make it through the debate. He's got to stand up at the debate. He also picked, remember, he won the coin toss. So he decided whether he had the choice. He could either pick the podium position, and decide either he'll take the right or the left podium, or he could be the person who gets the last word in the debate, which is often usually the very, very key position. You would think you'd want the last word in the debate if you're a memorable guy. Unless you think you're going to mess up, maybe you don't want the last word in the debate. Well, lo and behold, he decided he wants to have the position for the podium, which is on the right-hand side. And now Donald Trump will have the last word in the debate. So it's going to be one for the record books. There is no doubt about that. And we just talked about these anti-Semitic protests. That is going to be a huge part of the discussion, you would imagine, about supporting Israel and what should be done with these anti-Semitic protesters. Again, Bragg giving them a slap on the wrist. I contend that is only fueling the fire, and we will see more of them thanks to this easy pass that he's giving the protesters. And in addition to that, economy is obviously going to be a big issue. We all feel it when we go to the grocery store. But also, on top of all of that, also the border and these recent cases of migrant crime that are skyrocketing across the country. And today, the guy who raped and murdered the mother of 5, Rachel Morin in Maryland, just an animal, beyond animal. He appeared in court. He was brought finally to Maryland from Tulsa, Oklahoma. Also, charges came, thank goodness, for the monster who raped that 13-year-old in a Queens Park, another illegal. And then there's this horrible case of what just happened in the last few days in Houston, Texas, of a 12-year-old girl there who was lured by 2 illegal migrants from Venezuela. And they brutalized her, they strangled her, and they left her body in a creek. And thank goodness they have gotten these animals too as well. But there's a lot of these cases that are just absolutely horrible and heinous. And if you see the pattern, they all came through the border illegally. In a number of cases, they were given notices to appear. And of course, we couldn't find the criminal records. You know that these people had criminal records. I'm sure most of them in their home country. We know the guy from El Salvador who killed Rachel Morin. He killed somebody in El Salvador. And of course, El Salvador wasn't telling us, hey, guess what? You got a murderer crossing the border. They're probably happy to get rid of him. Just like a lot of these other countries. You think Venezuela is helping us and giving us details on their criminals? They're happy that they're also coming into the United States. So, I mean, there's just so many problems with a wide open border. And I just hope that the CNN moderators are fair, because I keep thinking about Jake Tapper, who is going to be one of the moderators. When President Trump started talking about the border at one point after he had one of the charges against him. I'll never forget this moment. And then suddenly start talking and saying, it's an invasion at the border. Well, guess what? It is an invasion. I think he's spot on. It is a downright dangerous invasion. And suddenly Jake Tapper cuts away, comes back on set and says, oh, sorry about that. That's incorrect. It's not an invasion. Let's cut away from these lies. So is this the way he's going to moderate the debate? That when Joe Biden says, oh, prices are great, Jake Tapper goes, oh, yeah, I agree with you. I agree with you, Mr. President. And when he says that, oh, no problem at the border, everything's wonderful. Oh, I agree with you, Mr. President. Oh, Donald Trump, terrible, terrible that you call it an invasion. Terrible that you call these people criminals. Guess what? They committed a crime when they crossed a border illegally. And believe me, the ones that have committed these horrible, heinous crimes of rape and murder, yeah, they are criminals. They're animals. That's the nicest thing I can say. I hope Jake Tapper doesn't correct President Trump when he calls them a criminal. I'm waiting for Jake Tapper to say, that's not a nice thing to say. I guess maybe it's not a nice thing to do what they've done to some of America's precious treasures like these young girls. I mean, it is just disgusting and it's horrible. And that is what happens when you have an unvetted, unchecked southern border. And that is why let's hope that President Trump really gives it to him. It's going to be interesting because President Trump has said he believes he's going to be debating. It'll be like 3-on-1 because it's going to be Trump debating not just Biden, but he's also going to be debating the two moderators from CNN. So this is definitely going to be one for the record books. And just a little bit ago, Kamala Harris, the vice president, who doesn't talk very much. She cackles a lot, but she doesn't talk very much. Well, she did an interview with MSNBC, and she said, boy, the choice could not be more clear for America. And this debate that's coming up will really spotlight everything and just crystallize everything for everyone. Take a listen.
Joe Biden and this debate will make clear the contrast. Of the many issues in our country and our world that are complex and nuanced, November of 2024 is binary. And when you look at the difference, I would ask people to really imagine what the world will be like on January 20th, 2025. On the one hand, you have Joe Biden, who has spent his life and career fighting for the well-being of other people, including health care. On the other hand, you have the former president who spent full time when he was president trying to get rid of the Affordable Care Act, which, if he is successful as president again, would mean over 100 million people would be stripped of health care coverage. You have, on the one hand, Joe Biden, who under his leadership, bipartisan support for the first meaningful gun safety legislation in 30 years. And on the other hand, the former president, who, when speaking of survivors of horrendous gun violence, says, get over it, and will proudly talk about how, to the NRA, about how he did nothing on the issue. And I could go on and on. I think that the debate is going to make clear the contrast between our president, the current president, who works on behalf of the American people, fights for the American people, and the former president, who pretty much spends full time fighting for himself.
I have to laugh when I hear her talking about gun rights. I'm sorry. There's a lot there that Joe Biden has no moral authority on. And a lot of that, of what they said about President Trump, is just a lie. And so I hope President Trump, even though they are cutting each other's mics off, supposedly they're not allowed to interrupt each other, that they're only going to have the mics on when you're responding, so you can't kind of interrupt. It really isn't a debate because Joe Biden can't debate. So they clearly agreed to these terms to placate Joe Biden. But I hope that Donald Trump calmly and looks directly and says, that's a flat out lie. That is a flat out lie. And first of all, for Joe Biden to act like he's the moral authority on gun issues after his son has now been charged with 3 felony gun counts. I hope that Donald Trump, when he starts talking about gun safety, says, well, maybe you should look at your own home before you start talking to the rest of the country. And I also hope whenever he starts calling him convicted felon Donald Trump, he should say, oh, yeah, convicted felon Hunter Biden. You got to do it, President Trump. You got to do it. Just the hypocrisy is so rife. And here is Van Jones, CNN commentator. And Van is always a pretty straight shooter, you know. I mean, he's come out and said, yeah, Joe Biden needs a lot of work. He said that. You know, Carville's kind of intimated that. David Axelrod, they've intimated it. And this is what Van Jones said about how critical this debate is for President Biden. Listen to this.
This is the entire election as far as I'm concerned. The entire world will be watching. If you are a carbon-based life form, you're going to be watching. If you've got a functioning brainstem, you're going to be watching. Because if Biden goes out there and messes up, it's game over. If he walks out there and a week later he's lower in the polls, it's panic in the party. But if he goes in there and he can handle himself against Donald Trump, a runaway train, a locomotive, a raging bull, then this guy deserves another shot to be president, because that is tough. You couldn't do it. I couldn't do it. If you can stand toe-to-toe with a runaway train like Donald Trump for an hour and a half, you are fit to be president, period, point blank. This is the whole presidency in a bottle in a week.
Wow. So if Biden messes up, it is game over. How much do you think the commentators will try to protect Joe Biden? I think they're going to do everything they can. And again, Joe Biden is going through it minute by minute, trying to prepare. That's why he's getting rest. That's why he's going to Camp David. That's why he is MIA, because he knows the stakes could not be higher for him. And I think Trump's role is to stay calm and focused and try to not take the bait, because there's going to be a lot of bait thrown at him by Joe Biden. They're going to work on a whole bunch of zingers to try to get under Trump's skin. And there's a lot that Trump can be touting. He can go after, as we're talking about these anti-Semitic protests and how President Biden has done nothing but coddle these protesters and thrown Israel under the bus. He can go after the fact that Joe Biden apologized after he called Laken Riley's killer illegal. Remember? He didn't apologize to Laken Riley or her family or say anything's wrong with that. Didn't apologize to any of the other angel moms out there. Nope. He apologized to the killer, saying, I'm so sorry, Mr. Killer. I should have called you undocumented. I should have called you a newcomer. I didn't mean to be mean to you, Mr. Killer. I'm so sorry. The world is upside down. 1-800-848-9222. 1-800-848-9222. Let's go to Robert, line 2. Robert, your thoughts.
Yeah. Hi, Rita. How you doing? You know, this is just as important for Trump. I mean, Trump is the one who said us, we got to debate. And Trump has to be careful, because he could get a little bit, excited and, not try to bully his way into it. He has to beat the hell out of him, and that will work. I mean, if he talks about they're convicted felon, they said, that's because you can't win fairly. You cheat in elections. So you're weaponizing government. Very simple. And then go right into it. Talk about open borders. He wants to change the electorate. That's why he's purposely having open borders. He wants to bring an influx of amount of people that he wants to change the electorate forever. He needs to stay on message instead of talking about himself. And
so now here's what's going to happen, Robert. I'm just playing devil's advocate. If I'm the Biden team, I anticipate that. And my response is, oh, Trump, you are racist because you don't want these people to come across the border. You don't want America to be a melting pot. Don't you look at the history? You sound so xenophobic. You sound so racist. What do you say back there, Robert?
Yeah, I say it's absolutely not true. You've been using racism for your whole life. The original racists are you. Look what you said back here. And, everybody in a convenience store sounds like has to be Indian. Or, other things that he did.
How about the fact he did the eulogy at Robert Byrd, who was a Klansman, his funeral?
Right. How come the Democrats and your team always uses race? How come you always got to use race? racism all the time. You're purposely inflaming groups. Is that what the Democrats do? That's what I would say. I wish I could write him some stuff.
Yeah, you got it. And the other thing, Robert, he should also say, look, if you want to talk about who does more for the African-American community, under me, I'm saying if I were Trump, they had economic prosperity. They had more growth. They had a lower level of, unemployment than ever before. They were getting jobs. They were getting prosperity. They were getting access to homes. He was somebody who was getting all different segments were lifted up. That's the way you help everybody and help communities. You didn't do that, Joe Biden. That's what I would say. So there's a lot there, but you're right. He's got to stay focused and laser focused and not get thin skinned because they're going to try to get under that skin big time. 1-800-848-9222.
You're listening to The Rita Cosby Show. This is The Rita Cosby Show.
We were talking about the charges dropped by Bragg on those people that were holed up at Columbia University. On the flip side, listen to this. This is from San Francisco. A man sentenced to 30 years in federal prison for the attack that took place on former House Speaker Nancy Pelosi's husband. Remember when that happened at his home? Well, he was convicted a few hours ago of aggravated kidnapping. And that makes it a conviction that mandates life behind bars without the possibility of parole. So if you go after the Pelosi's, or if your last name's Trump, or you were anywhere near D.C. on January 6th, they'll throw the book at you, or else you get a free ride. Wow, wow, wow. Let's go to Norm real quick. Norm in Brooklyn. Go ahead, Norm.
Hi, Rita. Listen, I don't have CNN, okay, so I won't be watching the debate.
Well, you got to listen.
Yeah, well, I'll be listening to your assessment of it. But, listen, I don't know. He's not going to be debating Joe Biden. He's going to be debating CNN and their Grand Inquisitor, Jake Tapper. And it's for that reason, I don't think you should do this debate at this point.
Well, the problem is, Norm, he's agreed. He's got to do it now.
Rita Cosby is on.
In the summertime, when the weather is hot, you can stretch right up and touch the sky. When the weather's fine, you got women on your mind. Have a drink, have a drive, go out and see what you can find. If a daddy's rich, take her out for a meal. If a daddy's poor, just do what you feel. Speed along the lane, you a down or a turn of 25.
Well, no doubt, everybody, it is hot. It is summertime weather. So everybody be sure to stay cool because it is sweltering hot out there. One of the hot issues for sure during the debate that is coming up is going to be the border crisis. And some of the numbers that have happened in the last 3+ years under Joe Biden are shocking the conscience. He is the leader in the most illegals crossing our U.S. border in American history every single year. And this president continues to ignore it. His party continues to ignore it. They don't challenge him. And in fact, as we are heading clearly to Election Day, it's like they are continuing to act like no problem at the border. The president's working on it. It's the Republicans. That's again why this debate next week, President Trump has got to come back and say, what are you talking about? Is there anybody out there that actually believes that it's the Republicans that are blocking things on the border? Is there anybody out there that actually believes that it's Republicans who want wide open border like President Biden does? And there have been some horrible cases as of late that have just gripped the headlines and are just gut punches. When you hear the details, it's really just heartbreaking. Today, the suspect who was accused of raping and murdering a mother of 5 in Maryland, well, he was in court today and he was transferred from Tulsa, where they finally busted him. If you look at the background of this guy, it's shocking to the core. He's an El Salvadoran, crossed the border a number of times, crossed the border 4 times in the last year illegally, kept coming back. Clearly, he didn't get the message. And then it turns out he murdered a woman in his home country. He also assaulted a mom and a daughter in Los Angeles. That's how they got him on sort of the video camera. This guy is a monster, an absolute monster. And today, Rachel Morin, the mother's sister, this is the mother of 5's sister, Rachel Morin's sister, spoke out and said she has no doubt who she blames for her sister's murder.
Biden's first day in office was to remove every executive order that Trump had put in place to secure our border. And he stopped the building of the wall. As far as I'm concerned, the Biden administration has the blood of Rachel Morin on their hands.
Wow. The Biden administration has the blood of Rachel Morin on their hands. That is a very powerful statement. And can you blame them after what has happened? And we understand President Trump called the family. As far as we understand at this moment, nobody from the White House has reached out to Rachel Morin's family whatsoever because they don't want to draw attention to the wide open southern border, just like they don't call the families of Lake and Riley, and they don't call the families of so many others. They don't call the families who've lost loved ones because of fentanyl, because they don't want to draw attention to that either. And sadly, there are more and more cases that are popping up across the country. And this latest one that took place in Houston is nothing short of shocking the conscience when you hear what happened to this little girl, 12 years old, Jocelyn Nungari. She was taken from her home. Apparently, she was lured out of her house by 2 migrants, 2 illegals from Venezuela. And then they took her to a convenience store. They took her under a bridge. They tied her hands. They removed her pants. They had their way with her for 2 hours, and they threw her body in a creek. I don't know if anything is almost more unconscionable what happened to this young girl. I mean, it is so shocking to the core. They strangled her, and apparently a passerby saw what they thought was a little doll in the creek, and it was this little beautiful 12-year-old girl, Jocelyn Nungari. And these 2 savages, because that's the nicest thing I could say about them, they apparently had been arrested and released in the last few months for crossing the border. No big deal. One of them, I think, had an ankle bracelet or something on a monitor, and he cut it off right before he did this. Luckily, they have gotten the 2 guys, and luckily they will be charged with, it looks like, the maximum punishment. And whatever it is, it's not enough when you think about what they did to this little girl. Listen to what Ken Neely, he's with the Houston PD where this case happened, He's with the police union there. And this is what he described on just how difficult it is to fight what they are fighting, crime on two fronts. Take a listen.
We have our own, basically homegrown criminals that we have to deal with. And then you couple that with other individuals coming from different countries and entering illegally into the state and into our city, and they're committing some violent acts. This is just another glaring a glaring act that have been committed on the citizens of Houston by people who've crossed this border illegally.
Yeah. Can you imagine law enforcement in the community? And they are saying there should be the absolute maximum for this monster, these two Venezuelans. And of course, who could forget the case in Queens, the 13-year-old girl who was raped by an Ecuadorian. Illegal again also as well. He crossed the border. And apparently when he crossed the border, he had a young child with him, claiming it was his child. Maybe it was, maybe it wasn't. But how horrible that these cases have happened. And these are savages. And yet, this is really incredible to hear. MSNBC had on, it was a discussion. There were a number of discussions. One of them took place with Congresswoman Pramila Jayapal. And she's one of the so-called squad members, of course, as you know. She was on with Joy Reid on MSNBC. And a number of people there in this segment, you'll hear, were kind of saying, boy, Fox covering these crimes, it's exaggerating. And they were laughing about it. Listen to this.
A lot of fear mongering.
There's a lot of fear mongering. This is one of the reasons that people have these sort of thinking. Here's the three cable networks reporting of this. Was our banner said soon Biden announces legal protections for undocumented spouses of U.S. citizens. CNN's banner said Biden announces new protections for some undocumented spouses. Here was Fox's banner. Migrant arrested for raping 13-year-old New York City.
Yes.
And so I think that's part of the problem, right?
Exactly.
Is that you have
That's
a lot
part
of fear mongering.
Exactly.
Yeah, isn't that funny? They're laughing about crimes against teenage girls. Isn't that hilarious? I mean, what is going on with these people? 1-800-848-9222, 1-800-848-9222. Let's go to Connie. Connie, your thoughts. This is it's when you hear the details of what happened, and we're getting more and more of these details, especially, every one of these cases is just horrific. Your thoughts?
I absolutely agree, and may God help the families of those victims.
Absolutely.
It's unbelievable, and people are starting to react to this. As you're aware, in New York, a group of people that lived in the neighborhood where that Ecuadorian rapist was living, they got a hold of him. And there was a woman in the background, and I'm pretty sure I can say this on the air because she played it in a clip, and she was yelling, "Beat his ass! Beat his ass! Beat his ass!" This is coming out of deep blue New York City. People have had it with schools being taken away from kids, veterans not getting a place to live, everybody being dislocated due to all this migrant stuff, and then on top of it all, they have emptied out their prisons, they have emptied out their insane asylums, they have emptied out their bad criminals, sent them to the border, and now we're dealing with that on top of everything else. And people they're seeing it. And Joe Biden has one heck of a nerve saying that's the Republicans. His first day in office, maybe even like the afternoon after he got sworn in, he runs up, signs the documents to open up the border, all that material that Trump had purchased that was due to go up, laid to waste. It's just ridiculous for anybody to
and there's can you believe, though, just like you're saying, Connie, he's going to blame it on the Republicans. He's hoping, like, if he spins this big of a tale, that maybe somebody stupid out there who believes it. Now, let me ask you, Connie, what would you say if you were Trump, you're in the debate, And you can see already that this is probably coming. It's probably going to come from Biden that, the Republicans, they blocked that deal. It was a bipartisan deal, and you blocked it, Mr. President. And, he has to say it was codifying illegal behavior. And he's going to say, look, I did an executive order. I've done this. He's going to try to claim all these things that he's been really on it this entire time. What would you say if you were Trump, if you looked him in the eye after he said that?
I would say, well, the reason why you had to go to all that trouble to try to pass something like that was because we have an issue. And we have an issue because you opened up the border.
Yeah, and I would say more than an issue. I would call it a catastrophic crisis that they have created, that he has had the biggest amount in, our lifetimes of illegal crossers. And the facts are the facts. And that this is shameful, that he's doing it all for politics. I'd look him right in the eye and I'd say, this is just disgusting. It really is. It will make me sick to hear all the lies that I am sure Joe Biden's going to try to spin, because you already see sort of where it's coming on this one. Connie, thank you very, very much. Really powerful points. Let's go to Mimi. Line 1. Mimi, your thoughts.
Hi, Rita. I have a thought about H.R. 2. It was
the House bill, which was much stronger. Yup.
Much stronger, but it's up to the president. First the president, then they tried H.R. 2. It was tabled by Schumer. Then Greg, what's his name, Abbott, Governor Abbott, tried to pass state laws, and he went against them in the Supreme Court.
Yeah,
so
Mimi, you're right. You're right. They have been fighting them tooth and nail. And you're right. You reminded me also against Abbott, too. Every time Abbott's tried to do anything, they have been fighting him every single step of the way. They don't want him to take the law into his hands and to protect his state. And he should absolutely bring that up, too. And you're right. H.R. 2 was a much stronger border bill. But Joe Biden didn't want it. And even this, this executive order that he has just done, it is pathetic. It's still a far cry. If you look at it, it's still allowing up to 2,500 illegals a day. And those who are on the border all the time say it hasn't changed a damn thing. What it's done is try to give Joe Biden some sort of cover to say, hey, I did something. It's all politics. And boy, are we in a mess. I can't imagine, we played at the beginning of this hour, guys, the comments from Kamala Harris saying, imagine what America would look like under Trump. I'm imagining what America would look like under one other year, let alone 4 more years of Joe Biden. 1-800-848-9222, 1-800-848-9222. And now to our Support Our Heroes segment.
The Rita Cosby Show presents Support Our Heroes.
And this is the Tunnel to Towers Foundation Support Our Heroes segment, with a powerful story coming from Michigan, where the first all-female honor flight in Michigan just took place recently, and it included a U.S. Coast Guard veteran, Colleen Sexton. Now, the event was organized by Honor Flight. It took place on June 11th, and it departed from Bishop Airport in Flint, Michigan, going to Washington Airport. And the all-female honor flight was a notable milestone. It offered a 2-day excursion for them to visit the memorials, to consecrate, and to honor, most importantly, and to appreciate veteran service and also their sacrifices. Well, the veteran Sexton said, quote, words are hard to describe the emotions or express the feelings that we have as you're being honored by civilians, war and peacetime veterans as you leave Flint Airport, and of course, upon returning home to so much fanfare and so much applause. Honor Flight veterans visited sites commemorating the U.S. Armed Forces and memorializing veterans from World War II onward. And bravo to the great Honor Flight team. They do so much work. I love Honor Flight. It is a nonprofit organization established in 2005, and it aims to transport U.S. military veterans to Washington, D.C. to see the monuments dedicated to their service at no cost to them whatsoever, which I love. The trip represents a tribute to all veterans who've served and sacrificed, providing a venue for shared stories and historical connections. And they do incredible work. And bravo to the female veterans, too, that were honored. And everybody help America to never, ever forget. Donate $11 a month to the Tunnel to Towers Foundation. Check them out at T2T.org. They do so much incredible work for warriors and their families. Tunnel to Towers Foundation at T2T.org.
You're listening to The Rita Cosby Show. It's The Rita Cosby Show.
Horrible cases of migrant crime, and it's only going to get worse. We've got the summer months, and we have more and more migrants. And there's just no way that border agents can keep track of them. You heard in all these cases, they were pretty much let into the country and then said, hey, come on back for a notice to appear. Come on back in about a year or two. Do you think they ever would come back? And in some cases, they just crossed the border a few months ago. I wonder what these monsters, the ones that did this to this beautiful young girl in Houston, I wonder what they did in Venezuela. You know, one of them was like, oh, you know, they left the country because of what was going on and the abuse that was going on in their country against them. Well, maybe if you're a criminal, yeah, maybe you do get punished in those countries. Unlike, sadly, what is happening in the United States. Thank goodness they have been ID'd, but it makes you wonder how many more cases like this. And for generations to come, we will feel the effect of these open borders, even if they're closed tomorrow. But you got to start somewhere. President Trump has said on day one, he will seal the border and he will start deporting. And he will deport those who indeed have committed crimes. Believe it or not, that doesn't automatically qualify for just, deporting. That's shocking, but that is the case under Joe Biden's America. Let's go real quick to Stan real quick on line one. Stan, go ahead. Sorry about keeping you waiting. Go ahead.
You talk about moral authority. Who are you kidding? This guy has moral authority. If I'm Biden, I say you have never had moral authority. You surrendered in Afghanistan. There's no moral authority.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. Biden did abandon Afghanistan. You're correct, Stan.
No, the traitor Trump did. He's the one that signed the grid. He's the one that did it.
All right, so let me clear the air here, Stan. At that time, Joe Biden was the president. He's the one who said, let's leave everybody essentially high and dry. Let's pull out of Bagram. Let's leave our allies behind. And let's also leave $85 billion worth of equipment. He was the president.
Long Island is more exciting than ever at Jake's 58 Casino Hotel. Get ready to zoom into some serious cash with Zoom Ball every Wednesday in June. Win up to $500,000. 1 point equals 1 entry. 2 lucky winners will be drawn at the top of every hour from 1 to 5 p.m. to play Zoom Ball. Discover the excitement at Jake's 58 Casino Hotel.
If gambling is a problem for you or someone, please call the 24-hour toll-free helpline at 877-8-HOPE-NY or text NY.